Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're going to continuing series. Is that an analog in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Or I show you how to set your analog pocket up, do core reviews, and guide you through getting games working on OpenFPGA. And today we have the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive. Now I only own a Genesis CDX, and that has CD support as well for the Sega CD. Be aware that Sega CD is not yet on Analogue Pocket and may never come. But honestly, having Sega Genesis on the go is absolutely spectacular, so we're going to show you how to set it up, all the different core settings you can articulate, and get you playing. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But Genesis on Pocket is absolutely spectacular, and we're going to get you playing today because it's so much fun to have a Sega Genesis in your pocket that isn't the Sega Nomad. That thing eats through batteries, and it is way bulkier than this. Now, a note on controls. Last time I did my controller tutorial video, I could not get my retro-bit Sega Saturn controller working. I had to flash the firmware to the same firmware that was on the device. Do not ask me why. This brought it back to life. A few people mentioned they had done that and it worked. This is the controller I recommend you use if you want to play docked Pocket. It's got all of the buttons in the correct orientation as an original Sega Genesis controller versus the diamond pattern. But if you don't have that, I recommend you use a PlayStation 4 controller and Xbox Series X. They have a nice hand feel and they are good to go. And honestly, I can't say enough good things about how good the Sega Genesis core looks in handheld mode. This screen is absolutely spectacular. It does the graphics so many favors, so whether you're docked or handheld, you're going to have a good time. Now the good thing is the Sega Genesis core is one of the easier ones to set up, but it doesn't come without its hitches, and there are a lot of settings that you can change in the core, so make sure you watch the whole video. You'll see here I have all the games I want to add to my pocket. They came in zip format. These are all games I legally own. And we want to unzip them until we get the actual files out. You'll see it ends in a .md file extension. These are the files we want to add to our Analogue Pocket. You'll see all 6 of them are going to end in MD, which stands for Mega Drive. Although interestingly enough, when you get into the folder structure, it is not under MD, so don't get tripped up by that. I've had a few people comment saying they couldn't find the folder, and that's because they were looking for the file extension, not for the folder in and of itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy over all of those games to where they need to be. And if you haven't run Pocket Updater yet, I'll leave a link below so you can see the video. If you haven't done something like this yet, you're not going to have the OpenFPGA cores. You'll have nowhere to put these games. If you need to use it, just use Update All and follow that link below to get a more in-depth tutorial on how to do that. But if we go into Assets, we're going to scroll down and we're going to get to the Sega Genesis folder. Again, like I said, even though the extension ends in MD, that is not where the folder is going to be. It's just the file extension people chose a very long time ago, but I know some people get tripped up on this. If we go into Genesis and under Common, this is where we're going to paste all of the game files we just showed you in a previous screen. Once they're posted here, so long as those files are good, they will be available to play on your Analogue Pocket under OpenFPGA next time you turn it on and navigate to it. But as you see here, playing the best Sonic game on the Sega Genesis, Sonic 2, leave me a comment down below if you disagree. It does just work. That's the great thing about this core. I put it through its paces. I've tried a lot of games that I have played before. Everything I've thrown at it has been exactly as I would expect it to be, down to some weird graphical glitches at the bottom of the screen, just a little bit of overdraw there. Don't worry about that, it happens. But just playing Sonic 2, the fluidity is there, the music sounds great, all of the graphics are as is, but there's a lot of audio options that I'm going to go through in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. Now when we actually get into the Analogue Pocket menu, whether you're docked or handheld, we're going to come down to OpenFPGA, and I want you to note that once we go into console and look at the Genesis heading, there's going to be a 2 next to it. Any core that has a number next to it means there's alternate cores. The spiritualized core is going to be the one we use by default at the top, and then we have the other core if we want to play around with that, although the settings are very, very similar. So if you see a number, just be aware that's more than one option. And now that we're back into Sonic 2, if you want to remap your controls for any reason, go into Core Options and Controls. That way, if you're not using a 3-button or 6-button controller that has the Genesis ARC, you can decide where you want to put them, and I do find that to be very useful if you're using a non-standard Genesis pad with a different button layout. If you want to remap everything, just hit Remap All, and if you want to reset to defaults, well obviously that's the button you're going to want to hit there. But there's a ton of different options within the core that we can articulate. You'll have a different region here. This will auto-default. It will pick the region for the ROM file you have. You have Europe, you have Japan, you have United States. This pretty much works on its own. You can also turbo the CPU up to medium and high. This will clock the CPU up in FPGA because some games do exhibit slowdown, which would be native to the Sega Genesis hardware. If you want the authentic experience, just leave it as none. You can have a multi-tap and a light gun as well for games that support it. Maybe I'll do a different video on that. Leave me a comment down below if you want a light gun tutorial. If you're using the M30 controller from 8BitDo, there's a toggle for that. And then we have corrected aspect ratio. If we back out of this menu, you're going to see the image got a lot wider. I don't love this as much. I prefer it to be off. You get your choice as far as what aspect ratio you want, and you also get composite blending that would make it look like it was on a composite video signal from an old school CRT TV back in the day. A lot of people love these composite filters, and I will say on Sonic the Hedgehog 2 here with the fast motion, it does have a good look to it. Other games that move a little bit slower, it's honestly not for me, but the great thing is they're just choices. You can decide to use them or not use them, whatever you want to do. And be aware that there is an adaptive mode as well that doesn't really seem to change all that much of anything. There's a little bit of composite blending it looks like, but otherwise it's pretty much standard, so you pick what looks good to you. Now moving on, we also have audio options as well that I will get to in just a moment, but first let me show you Castlevania Bloodlines. The reason I'm showing this to you first is because there's different FM sound chips as well as different frequency adjustments we can use to make the soundtrack and the sound effects sound different, because there was multiple Genesis and Mega Drive revisions, all that had slightly different variations to the audio hardware, and a lot of what comes down to Sega Genesis sounding accurate is how you remember it, so there's going to be a lot of audio options. So I'm going to give you two samples of the audio, one on one sound chip and one on the other. You can decide what you want to listen to. So I'm going to give you two sound samples in a row, one on the first YM sound chip and one on the second one, so you can decide which one you like. Go ahead and listen closely, and I'll be back to show you some more settings you can enjoy. Leave me a comment down below and tell me which one you thought sound better, because the first sample is the first YM chip and the second sample is going to be the second YM chip, and you'll see them right here very shortly. But we also have audio filters as well that are going to model both the Model 1 and the Model 2 Sega Genesis, as well as being minimal and off completely. Again, it's just going to give you a different sound filtering quality, so you decide which one works for you, and that's totally subjective. The right answer is the one you think sounds the best. But just playing Castlevania Bloodlines here, it is fast, it is fluid, and the best part is the controls are responsive, even on wireless controls. Because this is FPGA and it's doing everything in parallel processing, if there's any lag whatsoever, it is not affecting my gameplay. And of course there is lag. The controller is going to introduce a little bit. That is just how this works. And you'll see there when that slows down, if you clock the CPU up, some of that slowdown would have been minimized, but it is not a complete fix. You want to change the game, just go to load cartridge, pick whatever you want next, and you're playing the next game. And the best part about this is you have infinite choices to what you may want to play. This is the Wii Virtual Console version of Monster World 4, and it is in English with a different type of translation. It's so much fun to be able to play all of these different games on Pocket, and so many of these make such excellent handheld versions, whether you're on the train or the plane. It is a ton of fun, and then when you come home, you just slide to the Analogue Pocket right into the dock, and you can continue your game from where you are sitting. It is just that much fun. And something like Gunstar Heroes here, another absolute classic Sega Genesis game, one that I played a ton that just seems to be working exactly as I would expect if I was playing at home on my original hardware with an original cartridge and controller in my hand. It's so much fun to be able to see this running, and you can see all the dithering in the back as well, something that the Sega Genesis like to do with those clouds there in other areas. It just looks accurate. That's what really matters. This is an FPGA device. We're looking for accuracy, and we are getting it here. And if you never played Gunstar Heroes before, you 100% owe it to yourself to check it out. It's an absolutely spectacular game from Treasure, and on Pocket here it's doing everything I want and more. And that's the main takeaway of this video. Everything I threw at the Sega Genesis core, the default one, just ran like I would expect it to. I saw no issues, I saw no problems with the games I've tested. But leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite Sega Genesis game to play is, and if you noticed any that don't work on Pocket, because I would be curious to hear about that. But that is how you get the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive core set up on your Analogue Pocket, all the different settings you can change in the core menus, and how to have fun with it. Maybe one day we'll see the Sega CD on Pocket. I haven't heard any rumors, and honestly, compared to Mr., I don't hear as much news about Pocket because I'm not checking for it. So if you've heard anything about Sega CD coming to Pocket, leave me a comment down below. If you have any issues with the tutorial, you get stuck, leave me a comment, I'll probably help you out. Sure that I'll be back next weekend with another Pocket tutorial, but go play some Genesis. Bye bye.